there's platforms now that exist where just like Shopify, where you're plugging in apps and you're looking consumer facing. Well, now on the back end, you have warehouse management systems that will connect with other things.
Welcome to another episode of What's Working in E-commerce. I'm your host, Eagan Heath. I am a partner at Asymmetric Marketing. We are at asymmetric.pro, used to be at caravandigital.com, and I took on a business partner. So check out our new site over there at asymmetric.pro. We do all kinds of traffic generation for D2C e-commerce companies, and that could be SEO, Google Ads, Meta Ads, and more, as well as email marketing and websites. So yeah, give us a shot there at asymmetric.pro and let me know what you think of the site and the company there. Today, we are talking all things fulfillment. We have Paul Jarette from Bulu. You can check him out at bulugroup.com or pauljarette.com. Paul, thank you for coming on and sharing what's working in e-commerce. We're going to talk about fulfillment.
Thanks for having me on. It's like the most boring subject. It's like, we're going to talk about fulfillment. Oh boy. And considering I look like a hypnotic thumb right now, so this should be a fun one for us.
We're going to brainwash people in the ways here. This is good for those watching on YouTube.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, you said something as we were chatting before that caught my attention was most people are going with 3PLs, and that's really only 3 of the Ps. And you're saying you guys are a 5PL. At bulugroup.com. What does that mean? And talk to people about that a little bit in case they've never heard of that either.
Yeah, well, we kind of say, listen, 3PL, let's just call it, this industry's been around forever. And part of one of the, well, I'll just say tricks. I actually just got off the phone this morning with a 3PL that they said, like, we don't appreciate you saying whatever. I'm like, this industry, it's time to get called out. It's time to smoke out all the BS. And what I would say is, there's a lot of acronyms and stuff like that. And whenever people use that stuff in any industry, I say, like, make them define it, make them give context, because usually there's something there moving around under a shell. And what we say, though, is if you consider third-party logistics, let's just call the 3 in there, store, pack, ship, right? That's the 3s. But what we're offering and where we found kind of a novel little distribution method outside of the traditional stuff is we're hooking up with manufacturers. So that's one, we do the store, pack, ship. And then we're taking it to the next step and we're really helping people with over 150 different distribution channels for sales. So going to bricks and mortar, going to e-commerce, selling through the technology is available and it's there. So yeah, that's why we kind of say we're a 5PL that charges 3PL rates. And with technology the way that it is in 2024, it's actually nuts. Impossible for people to do it themselves, right? And yeah, we started off a long time ago, and I just feel this need to go, logistics doesn't have to be that scary. I like to break it down for people and remove that kind of fear and terror, right? Because I feel like if you can talk to it and if you know the mechanics of it, that's what you need as an edge for a consumer good company, consumer packaged goods, to succeed. A lot of the companies that succeed are doing something a little different in the supply chain world. And I like to share that for people that are curious and doing the homework.
Okay. And I think a lot of people, if they're doing potentially fulfillment there, other people have come on and doing 3PLs like you said. So maybe paint the picture. If you want to pull up your slides now, you can, or, know, whenever it makes sense. Show us kind of what does the ecosystem look like and what are some of those challenges where it would make sense to go outside of maybe those options.
Yeah, absolutely. I did toss a little bit of work in here. So we've been around for over 12 years. We started off with our own consumer packaged goods product. We actually built and sold a software, which became rangeme.com. I don't know if you might be familiar with that. It is not what we originally expected it to be. But it's kind of LinkedIn for consumer packaged goods is one way to look at it. Then we built a lot of subscription boxes, as you'll see, for big brands. And that was what we were known for. And then just really recently, since we acquired Bulu 100% from investors, we kind of stripped everything out and we said, let's just focus on brands that want to grow, allowing them a methodology that we learned over 12 years working with big brands to actually ship like a major brand. And so, yeah, that's actually one of the tagline that we're thinking about. So if the audience has any opinions on it, this idea of like, now you can ship like a major brand, but also not saying through us, saying like, no, here, like literally go do it yourself. Here's how you do it. I really am about evening the playing field. So I got a couple slides. Here's just some of the work. I just share the work because I really do think people should push to see why they're listening to somebody. Like I would be like, why does this bald-headed thumb-looking guy have time to talk about this, right? And I would say because I was an entrepreneur in your shoes, and I'm basically solving the problem that we had when we first started. And it took 12 years to really grasp what's happening in the supply chain and go like, oh, this isn't fair.
Can you take us to that moment, Paul? And if you need to stop sharing for just a second, you can. That's great.
No, actually, here.
Sorry to interrupt you. Show us that brand. Tell us that moment. What was the problem?
Yeah, so actually, this is Bulu box. So we were one of the very first subscription boxes, and this is 12 years ago. So the irony of we built our website out. We actually were one of the first users of Shopify. And I would complain so much that Toby, I didn't know he was the CEO. I thought he was in customer service, but worked directly with Toby on it. And he's gone, just hack it. I should have listened to him. He said, you should just take what you've built and sell a payment subscription. And I was like, what is this clown there? He's in customer service at a new, company. I should have listened to him. He did better than we did. But yeah, we had this Bulu box, and for $10 a month, people could ship 4 to 5 vitamin supplement samples, or they could purchase them. And we were collecting the data, and then we were actually selling full size and actually manufacturing. You can see the slimming smoothie portion packet. We were making our own products, and there's us in our parents' basement. We actually raised 2 rounds of venture capital, but we still did the basement thing in Nebraska. So some early quick pictures I tell people, how do you get good at logistics? Go to bed and wake up thinking about it for 14 months. You'll either go crazy or you'll go, I got to sell these, right? So here's just a couple of pictures of where we started and some of our early metrics. So yeah, I like to just share like, hey, we've been there and it's frustrating, and we've done some work for some really big brands, right? I think there's a Disney in here somewhere. Yeah, there you go. So yeah. And I think I just like to share that of like, hey, this isn't some random person with an opinion. Like we've been in the trenches figuring stuff out, and there is a serious problem that we consider is occurring in logistics that it does make it unfair. And it sucks to sell more and spend more in digital marketing, and there's policy changes and all of that, when actually maybe you should be looking the last place you probably really want to look, and that's logistics, because usually there's a buck or two in there that is really crushing your margin. Most people don't know, probably around 10 to 15% of your sales should go into logistics, depending on the complexity of it. And I talk to people daily that they're doing 25, 30% of their revenue on a sold product is going to supply chain logistics. You're like, whoa, that's not going to work, right? So do you want me to jump in? Yeah.
Well, I think you live this world, and so maybe it's helpful for me to ask as a noob to it. I'm trying to understand what was the problem, and I think I heard it at the end of cost is a major problem, but maybe headache too. Is that right?
Well, I don't want to turn this into a pitch, but I didn't prepare my slides. But this is literally the problem. Like businesses, consumer packaged goods companies aren't actually selling where and how they should, because everything around them, the software, the financials, the margins, is built in this traditional linear fulfillment world, and it just kind of sucks, right? And this is what we see daily, right? Like inbound calls all the time. Somebody calls us up, they got a couple of customers, they got their Shopify website, they have their product, they're packaging it up, they know where to ship it, and it's like them and a buddy, right? They're doing it and it's working, and all of a sudden they go, hey, let's go to Amazon, right? And maybe they do it for SEO. Maybe they do it because they found a niche with a gift, right? And they bag and tag it, and they're like, oh, I got somebody. I got an Amazon person. We hear that all day. I got an Amazon person, fair, right? And then a lot of people we see want to do the big retail game, right? And maybe they do what they're supposed to do, and Target says, actually, we'll give you a couple thousand end caps, bag and tag it this way, send it to the DC, send it to the buyer, send this here, send it to my kid. Oh, you're EDI compliant, right? And these brands kind of, the younger fledgling brands like, oh, yeah, sure. And they turn around, they're like, the hell's EDI compliant? And they don't know, not having an answer for that question shot them in the front, right? Now we're seeing like this TikTok and Fair and just new sales channels. And what you get are these people stacking up resources, and maybe they have all in-house or multiple 3PLs. And we've just always thought that is kind of insane, right? And the way that this world, the traditional linear fulfillment world, the way that it's broken is it's just kind of built around, if I have a physical product, I'm trying to get it from point A to point B. That's the thinking, right? Just physical product, A to B. And we think about it totally different, which I'll kind of get to in a second here. We see a lot of this, like this is what the model ends up looking like. And you can kind of see everything flowing one way. And what happens is an inventory management problem, because they're pulling resources from other like traditional linear lines. And maybe they borrow, packaging, or they ship some expired product somewhere else and they didn't know it. And we're just kind of waving our flag going like, hey, physical product from point A to point B, and you're pulling resources from other locations. Like, how are you actually going to track your inventory? 99% of people, I would say, honestly, I bet about 73% of most consumer goods brands that are experiencing growth for longer than like 6 months to a year, they don't even know they have an inventory problem, right? And that inventory problem might be expiration dates, it might be barcodes or SKUs mislabeled or whatever, but it's just, I don't know. For after 12 years, I'm just tired of hearing about it and not talking about it from an industry standpoint. And so I'm making a lot of friends and a lot of enemies probably. But our idea, and really what we learned working with those big brands, is like, why don't we just empower a business of any size with unlimited sales channels, unlimited ways to pack it, and unlimited bundles kits if they want subscription, through this kind of hybrid hub and spoke, which is another way of just saying true omni-channel. But we want to tell people how it actually works. So you can go out and do it your own with the proper software, or what to look for when you're kind of looking for a logistics company. This is how we look at it, right? So product, we don't really care what it is. Why? Because if you have the physical product and the digital information of the product, you can tell really quickly, does this warehouse work with that or not? Case in point, chocolate, right? Your warehouse needs to be a certain temperature and humidity, but most warehouses are documenting this, right? Packaging, we don't care, plays. So we're kind of built around this, but this is the interesting is these sales channels, right? Most companies on that previous model, they're thinking about A to B. The way that we have always thought about it, and probably because we come from a little bit of a tech background, is if the world of logistics is thinking physical product A to B, the way we have always thought about it is you have a physical and a digital product, right? We call it kind of like the ghost version, right? The source of truth for the digital information of your product. And what I would say is your focus should be really drilling and understanding how whoever is shipping your product is tying the digital information with the physical information. Because when those things are sorted out and you really truly have, it's almost like saying, make sure that the barcode system, which never really actually kind of worked in general, right? Like make sure that you are closing the gaps for what the barcodes were originally intended to do, right? And keep that digital information with that physical information, because that's what actually allows you to ship directly to a bricks and mortar or e-commerce or whatever. And when you do it correctly, now you can do, what's working in e-commerce. I'm going to tell you what's working right now. If a brand wants to ship to a smaller bricks and mortar retail company, which those retail bricks and mortar, anything small, are always overlooked, but a lot of them have 200 stores, maybe 20 stores, maybe just one store. Well, if you do a model like this and you tie your digital and physical information together, those retail stores should be able to order one or two of your product, right? They're not having to buy a case. They're not having to buy a pallet. And this is the part where if some of those big distributors are hearing me, they're probably shaking in their boots right now, because the technology exists and it's available to say, hey, look, Red Clover Market in Lincoln, Nebraska ordered 2 watermelon and 1 lime. The technology exists where you can fulfill that order, whether it's to the store or to their customer through their website. And when you look at these two different models, this is where we really see people have their aha moment. We say, you were born and 80% of the consumer packaged goods market lives in this traditional linear fulfillment world. And it is just about getting the product from A to B. You are competing with 5PL companies and services where they historically had to pay a lot of money for very complicated ERP, et cetera, systems to tie the digital information with the physical information. However, now that most of these channels have APIs, it's actually an API discussion, right? And when you have, like we do, like 150 plus APIs and the people that have the warehouse and process to do it, our world, and now we kind of are preaching and hoping people start to look at it, just to even the playing ground in the consumer packaged goods world, like ship like a major brand. Why can't you do 5PL services at 3PL rates and have a dashboard with real-time understanding of like what's getting packed, when is it getting packed, where is it going, did the orders go out? Oh, look, we're out of boxes. Click here to order more with the manufacturer that's already connected to your 5PL system. And so really, I think a lot of people are spending way too much time integrating, getting a big NetSuite, Oracle, SAP system in place, or working with a company that has that. That's not needed anymore, right? And if you do that, you're going to have the overhead for the management. And I would say the same way that really I would credit Shopify with disrupting e-commerce directly facing customers. There are technology and softwares. Extensive is one of them that we like. It's extensive with no E on the end.com. There's platforms now that exist where just like Shopify, where you're plugging in apps and you're looking consumer facing. Well, now on the back end, you have warehouse management systems that will connect with other things, right? And nobody's talking about it, nobody's doing it. And I feel like we're just the first ones to go get up. Hey, big company, you want to ship exclusive remix drop? Cool. We'll do all the work for you. We just got to plug into your system. And they think it's some big complicated thing. You're like, yeah, just like let our devs talk to your devs. It's like copy paste stuff, right? And so, yeah, it's cool to see like some of the people that are hitting it big on TikTok now have the opportunity to like go sell in their local store or whatever. And yeah, there's a real, I wish I could take people and put them in my shoes and they could see my inbox and they could see all these traditional big fulfillment companies freaking out and calling us and they're frustrated. And you're like, yeah, man, like somebody's got to help consumer packaged goods companies save that buck or two, because who ends up paying the price for that? It's like these people that put in their blood, sweat, and tears, and they need that buck or two for advertising. So that was a lot. Hopefully it made sense as I went through it. So
yeah, I appreciate it, Paul. I don't know if there's a story you could tell us of, is there a brand or case study of kind of here's where they were before, here's what it looked like afterward?
Yeah. So we've landed about 30 clients in 60 days. There's a very popular Shark Tank person that I wish I could share. I think I'm safe saying that because they're kind of in the world and they came to us and we had to do it. So, but let me say, actually, there's probably one of my favorite ones was a guy named Ralph over at Paracana. Anybody can just Google Paracana. It's a fascinating product where it's a gummy mix for CBD or THC. So there's no THC or CBD included. It's just literally the gummy making kits. And Ralph was basically like, people should be able to take this for pain and whatever. And it just was, I knew the product had legs, but I knew the approach had to be different, which is a lot of consumer packaged goods, right? And so I said, hey, Ralph, why don't you like, and this is somebody that didn't have a lot of experience in the industry. Yeah. Oh yeah. And so he took a lot of, and I'm curious if you just typed in Paracana without the .com, could you do that really quick? We'll see how, if I'm full of BS or not. And I want to look at the Google search if you scroll down, let's see, keep scrolling. Oh, you're frozen on mine. But do you see a bunch of different locations that it's being sold? Yeah, Garden Remedy.
Yeah, Ice Valley and Door.
So, yep. So we contacted it. I was talking to him and I said, Ralph, like, I don't know how many people are using different POS systems in the market anymore because I've been working with big brands for the last 6 or 7 years. But I got a hunch a lot of people are using Square and Shopify and these, those POS point of sales where you swipe your card in retail, right? Why don't you just make a list of like 100 shops that might potentially carry your product and just call them up and just say like, hey, do you have Square? What are you using? I was blown away the amount of them that used a third party for their point of sale. And I said, if you talk to them, just tell them like, hey, we can sell on your website, ship to your customer. And if you want to order from me, just buy like a couple flavors. I'll send you a couple samples. You don't have to buy a case. You don't have to buy a pallet. And man, he disappeared. And I was like, oof, that was terrible advice, and I didn't even go call him back or whatever. But I went to the account manager and I go, how's Ralph doing up here? I kind of gave him, I'm not sure if it worked, but he knew that it was a gamble. And she goes, oh, you haven't heard? And I go, no, what? And she goes, you need to Google it. And I Googled it and there was like 50 results for where he was at selling. And I called him up and he's like, oh man, we haven't even talked. He's like, well, it worked. And he goes, exactly kind of what you said of like, maybe you could just make enough to, pay your rent and electricity and whatever. He goes, that's exactly what I'm doing. And you know what? I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to keep going after these small independent retailers. And they love putting in an order, and Bulu's able to just do like 2 watermelon and 1 strawberry. Another one that I really love, and they're so vocal about it, you can just look up optimizers on LinkedIn. They did an awesome post of, it's a former head of Sprouts. Tammy is her name. She's the former head of Sprouts as a retail buyer. And they were looking high and low for, just a different way to do logistics because she knew on her side that it probably wasn't set up and you could do more with technology. Long story short, we engaged them pretty quickly. They understood kind of exactly what we were doing. They thought something in the market might exist like this. And it's just really cool to see. I think it was 3 weeks after we started working together and shipping for them, they hit that spins data top 10 on a product, right? In a category. And then every week on LinkedIn, she's got about 2 different independent small retailers. And what it's doing is actually driving the big brands nuts because they're like, it's everywhere. How do we get it in the store? And they're like, we'll talk to you when we're ready for it. Right. And that is out there, out in the open. You might have to search LinkedIn or some blogs or like whatever, but it just feels like the time to go, hey, yeah, we're doing something cool, keeping the data and the product tied together, but like, everybody can have addresses. Everybody can have the same software, and don't 3PL or a partner that, maybe the proper way to say it is like, don't accept anybody that isn't a good fit, but really like don't accept someone based on their rates solely, because odds are in the consumer packaged goods e-commerce world, you need to evolve and change, right? And they need to be able to do subscription. They need to be able to take returns as you fine tune your model, because what you don't want to happen is you bet the farm on one thing and maybe it's subscription and you're advertising on Facebook. And that's just what you do and you're not slowly expanding. And then a policy change happens and boom. And I think that's really the thing that drives me of like, I don't ever want to see that again. I mean, it was really, I think, understated at how it shut businesses down. Like it really destroyed some people that didn't deserve it. And I feel like I'm on a bit of a crusade of like, yeah, don't do that again. Here's how you not get stuck in that,
Yeah. You're saying like iOS 14 update comes out, meta ads don't work like they used to. Somebody was all in on that channel. They weren't diversified away from it, right?
Yeah, we saw it. We saw it a lot. And it hurt us too, because first thing people don't do is pay your shipping bill, but that's not what this is about. This is about watching my friends and their blood, sweat, and tears. I can call them clients or whatever, but just in general, I've been doing this for so long. Mm-hmm. And their blood, sweat, and tears, where somebody at some level makes a change and they don't approach. I don't necessarily agree or disagree with the decision. The approach and how they did it so quickly, I think is what was kind of messed up. And, these people lost their livelihoods, right? Because of a couple of decisions. And Yeah, I just feel like I'm tired of the 3PL industry and their smoke and mirrors, right? I'm tired of people chasing the margin and not knowing what they're making on shipping. And really kind of the thing that, really the straw that broke the camel's back was these big companies changing their policies and putting a lot of companies under. And it's just like, yeah, it's a rigged game and it's not fair. If you want to go into retail, somebody needs to start talking about it and letting these people that are putting everything into their product know.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you, Paul.
I get pretty fired up. I get pretty fired up about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. Well, yeah, I could tell you're passionate about this. I've heard, career advice too is do the thing that's you find easy and interesting that other people find hard and boring and terrible. And I think it's clear that you've done that. So it's very inspiring. I would also add, my new business, Asymmetric Marketing, or our new brand is all about that. How do we give the small business an edge up against the big business? Yep. That's what the asymmetry is about. So I think you're a great fit. We'll have to chat more about how we can help each other here. But who's a great person to reach out to you? I'm putting this down in the books as maybe, from e-commerce to brick and mortar fulfillment. You can tell me if that's not the right title, but who should reach out to you guys at Bulu?
Yeah, I would say if you are, honestly, man, like here's what we kind of do. We say, look, if you are shipping something and you're struggling, do not be shy to hit us up. You can drop me an email. I'm not hard to find. We're not hard to find. And our sales team is instructed to really listen to what they're looking for. And 9 out of 10 of our calls, we send them somewhere else, right? Because we know at our core what that feels like to call places. And the worst thing anybody can do is say, oh, we're a match, we work, or whatever. Like that rarely happens. But if you can be the entity that goes, oh, you're this, you need to call Monty at the Ice Cube, and this is how you get refrigerated. We don't do that. We don't get anything for it. And I just feel like, because we've always taken that position of directing people to a good solution, long term, it just pays off for us. So, but I would say we really excel at anything food, vitamins, and supplements that's tricky.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I just actually learned about that recently too from my wife who's in skincare world and said, higher end skincare stuff, it can't just sit in those Amazon warehouses. Same story, certain supplements and things like that. So it all makes sense that it's got to be, like you said, it's got to be refrigerated or what have you, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, you can have a warehouse. If you use the Uber for shipping, as some people advertise, ship fill in the blank, right? Whoever, be prepared for a bad Uber driver. And what do you do when that bad Uber driver has the keys to your software and your product and the 3-year contract, right? And that's the part where I'm just tired of watching it happen. So let's get out there and talk about it, because we don't have 50 million a month to tell people. So we might as well just get vocal about it.
Love it. All right. Well, people can find you at bulugroup.com. We're waiting for the day that you got the bulu.com, but people can also just Google BULU. You're Paul Jarette with 2 R's and 2 T's. Is there a good place people should find you? Twitter, LinkedIn, is there a good place to follow what you're doing?
You know what? If you've made it this far and anything I've said is interesting, it's just Paul at bulugroup.com. Toss a little emoji in the subject line so I know to actually click on that and you're in. So.
No, that's great. All right, Paul, thank you so much for coming on and sharing.
Thanks, Eagan. Appreciate it. Thank you.